Brother, let me tell you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. The harder you try to make a woman want you, the faster you repel her. I know it sounds backward. I know it contradicts everything you've been told about showing interest and being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. But here's the truth most men will never accept. Sexual obsession isn't created through pursuit. It's created through strategic absence, through psychological triggers that bypass her logical mind and tap directly into her primal nervous system. And right now, you're probably doing the exact opposite of what actually works. You're texting too much. You're being too available. You're seeking validation instead of commanding desire. Stay until the end, because I'm going to reveal the one pattern, the single psychological mistake that kills attraction faster than anything else. Miss this, and you'll keep wondering why she loses interest the moment you think things are going well. Let's break down the framework. This is the man who constantly needs reassurance. He asks, "Do you like me?" He asks, "Are we good?" He monitors her texts like a hawk, analyzes response times, and spirals when she goes quiet for 3 hours. Picture this. You send a message. She doesn't respond immediately. Your mind races. Did I say something wrong? Is she with someone else? Is this over? Here's why this is lethal. Women don't fall for men they have to comfort. They fall for men who exist independent of their approval. When you seek validation, you're communicating at a subconscious level. I don't believe I'm valuable unless you confirm it. And the moment she senses that, her attraction dies, not slowly, instantly. Carl Jung talked about the shadow self, the parts of ourselves we reject. When you're constantly seeking validation, you're projecting your own self-doubt onto her. She becomes a mirror for your insecurity, and no woman wants that job. She wants a man who knows his worth, who carries it in his bones, who doesn't need her approval to feel whole. The consequence? You become exhausting, draining, a black hole of emotional need that she has to manage instead of a man she wants to surrender to. But here's where most men fail. They think being vulnerable means being needy. It doesn't. Vulnerability is sharing your truth from a place of strength. Neediness is outsourcing your emotional stability to someone else. Know the difference, and that's why so many men confuse attention with attraction. This man showers her with compliments, texts constantly, always initiates, always available at 2 a.m. when she's bored. He thinks, if I just show her how much I care, she'll want me. He's the guy who brings flowers on the second date and writes paragraphs when she sends one-word replies. At first, she might appreciate it, but soon, she starts taking it for granted. Over time, she loses respect, because attention without tension creates comfort, not craving. You become her emotional support dog, reliable, pleasant, sexless. The man she talks to about the guy she's actually sleeping with. The Stoics understood this. Value is determined by scarcity. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of knowing when to withdraw. When your attention is abundant and unconditional, it has no value. But when it's selective, when she has to earn it through her behavior, through showing up as her best self, suddenly it becomes precious. Suddenly she's thinking about you when you're not around. But here's where most men fail. They think withholding attention is playing games. It's not. It's having standards. It's saying through your actions, I'm choosing you because you're exceptional, not because I'm desperate. There's dignity in that. Power in that. And that selective attention, it only works if you're not falling into the third trap. He's the best friend who listens to all her problems. He's her therapist, her shoulder to cry on, her emergency contact when life gets hard. He thinks he's building intimacy. He thinks he's showing her what a good partner he'd be. He's actually building the friend zone, brick by brick. Picture this. She calls you crying about her ex, about her job, about her family, and you're there. Every time. Absorbing it, solving it, carrying it. You think you're being supportive. You're being neutered. Here's why this kills attraction. Sexual desire and emotional caretaking trigger different neural pathways. When you position yourself as her emotional support, her brain categorizes you as safe, nurturing, brother-like. These are oxytocin responses. Bonding, yes, but not erotic bonding. The man she's sexually obsessed with, he challenges her emotionally. He doesn't absorb her drama. He redirects it. But here's where most men fail. They confuse empathy with endless emotional labor. You can care about her without becoming her unpaid therapist. You can listen without solving every problem or absorbing every complaint. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-respect, which is exactly why the next pattern is so destructive. Before we go deeper, just do one thing for me. Hit the like button. If this is already hitting something real, what's coming next will hit even harder. Let's keep going. This is the guy who talks about where this is going on date 2, who mentions meeting parents, future vacations, hypothetical kids, all before real trust or sexual chemistry exists. He's trying to create commitment through projection rather than experience. Here's the danger. You're asking her to invest in a fantasy instead of earning her investment in reality. Women become obsessed with men who make them feel something in the present, not men who promise feelings in some imaginary future. You're essentially saying, "Don't judge me on who I am now. Judge me on this story I'm telling you about later." Machiavelli understood power dynamics. Never show all your cards. When you lay out your entire emotional hand, "I want a serious relationship. I'm looking for the one," you remove all mystery, all tension. Sexual obsession requires uncertainty, not about whether you're a good man, but about whether she's won you yet. But here's where most men fail. They think women want certainty and security from day one. They do, eventually. But first they want to earn you. They want to wonder. They want to feel like they're discovering something rare, something not everyone gets access to. And speaking of what women actually want versus what they say they want, he does nice things, but there's always a hidden contract. If I do X, Y, and Z, she'll owe me sex, love, commitment. He keeps score. He gets resentful when his investments don't pay dividends. He thinks relationships are transactional. They're not. This is insidious because covert contracts breed resentment and kill authenticity. She senses the manipulation even if she can't name it. You're not actually being kind. You're running a protection racket on her emotions. "I was nice to you, so you owe me." That's not love. That's extortion. Robert Greene wrote in The Art of Seduction, "Seduction is a game of psychology, not beauty." When you operate from covert contracts, you're in your head calculating ROI instead of being present with her. Women don't become obsessed with men they can predict and manipulate through guilt. They become obsessed with men whose generosity is authentic and outcome independent. But here's where most men fail. They confuse boundaries with transactions. Having standards isn't, "If I buy dinner, you owe me sex." It's, "I'm choosing to invest my time here, and I'm also free to walk away if this doesn't align with what I want." See the difference? But even if you avoid all these mistakes, there's one pattern, the most destructive one, that sneaks up on good men. Listen carefully, brother. This is the man who reshapes himself to fit what he thinks she wants. He hides his opinions, abandons his hobbies, cancels plans with friends, becomes a chameleon, morphing into her ideal instead of being himself and letting her either match or leave. At first, it seems star brother. Let me tell you something that's going to flip everything you know about attraction. Women don't get addicted to men who chase them. They get addicted to men who create a specific emotional sequence in their brain. Not the nicest guys, not the richest guys, not even the best-looking guys. The guys who trigger a neurological pattern that literally rewires how she thinks about them. Right now, you're probably doing everything the world told you would make her fall for you. Being available, being supportive, being consistent. And she's treating you like a friend, or worse, like an option. Meanwhile, that other guy, the one who seems to put in half the effort, she can't stop thinking about him. But here's what they're not telling you. There are 7 psychological triggers that create genuine female addiction. Not manipulation. Actual bonding chemistry. Stay until the end, because point number 7 will expose the one thing that separates men she forgets from men she can't let go of. This is the science nobody wants you to know. The dopamine spike pattern is about creating unpredictable rewards. Not hot and cold games, but genuine moments of unexpected intensity followed by calm normalcy. You give her an amazing experience, deep conversation, adventure, emotional connection. Then you go back to your regular life. She got a taste of something extraordinary. Then it disappeared. Not because you're playing games, because you have a life. Picture this. One night, you take her somewhere unexpected. You have an incredible conversation that goes until 3 a.m. She feels more connected to you than she has to anyone in months. Then the next few days, you're busy, not ignoring her, just occupied with your work, your mission, your world. At first, she thinks it's normal, but soon, she realizes she's waiting for the next spike. Over time, her brain starts craving you like a drug. This is dangerous because it mirrors how addiction forms in the brain. Slot machines don't pay out every time. They pay out randomly. That unpredictability creates the strongest neural pathways. When she can predict your attention, your affection, your availability, there's no dopamine spike, just flatline comfort. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky discovered that dopamine isn't released when you get the reward. It's released in anticipation of the reward. When she knows exactly when you'll text, exactly how you'll respond, exactly what you'll do next, there's no anticipation, no dopamine, no addiction. The spike pattern works because her brain starts craving the next unexpected moment of connection. Here's the consequence. She starts thinking about you when she should be thinking about other things. But here's where most men fail. They think this means being inconsistent, being flaky, canceling plans. It doesn't. The dopamine spike pattern requires you to be reliable in character, but unpredictable in timing and intensity. She trusts you, but she can't quite predict you. And that's why the next trigger builds on this foundation. Because unpredictability without emotional depth is just chaos. The vulnerability contrast is when you show her 2 versions of yourself. The strong, capable man who has his life together, and then, in rare moments, the human underneath who's capable of depth and emotion. Not weakness, not neediness. Controlled vulnerability. She sees you handle pressure with ease, then one night you share something real, something that costs you to reveal. Imagine this scenario. She's seen you handle difficult situations without flinching. She's seen you be calm when others panic, decisive when others hesitate. Then one evening, you tell her about something that actually matters to you. A loss, a fear, a dream. Not in a seeking sympathy way. In a, this is who I actually am way. And she realizes she's seeing something nobody else sees. This is dangerous because it creates what psychologists call emotional whiplash in the best way. She thought she had you figured out. Strong, stoic, maybe even distant. Then you let her see a layer nobody else sees. Suddenly, she feels special, chosen, like she has access to something sacred. Carl Jung talked about the persona versus the shadow. Most men show women only their persona, the mask they wear for the world. The vulnerability contrast works because you're selectively revealing your shadow, your deeper self, but only in calculated moments. It creates intimacy that feels earned, not given freely to everyone. The consequence, she starts protecting that access. Protecting you. But here's where most men fail. They overshare. They trauma dump. They use vulnerability as a plea for sympathy. Real vulnerability, contrast, is powerful because it's rare, intentional, and balanced. You're not broken. You're human. You're not weak. You're real. And that leads us to something even more primal. A trigger that taps into her biological wiring. The safety paradox is this. Women need to feel safe with you, but also slightly uncertain about keeping you. Not unsafe physically or emotionally. That's trauma, not attraction. But uncertain about your commitment level. She knows you're a good man. She knows you're capable of protecting her, providing for her, being there for her. But she's not 100% sure she's locked you down yet. Picture this dynamic. You're walking with her at night, and she instinctively feels safe. Your presence is protective, solid, reliable. But earlier that day, she saw another woman smile at you, and you smiled back, not flirting, just being friendly. But it reminded her that other women see what she sees. At first, that feels like competition, but soon, it feels like urgency. Over time, it becomes obsession. This is dangerous because it activates her pair bonding instincts on overdrive. Evolutionary psychology shows that women invest more in relationships where they perceive high male value combined with uncertain commitment. When she's certain you're completely devoted while she's still deciding, the power dynamic kills attraction. When she's certain you're high value but uncertain if you'll stay, she bonds harder. This is pure evolutionary biology. Throughout human history, women who secured high-quality mates passed on more successful genes. The safety paradox triggers her instinct to secure you before another woman does. You're safe. She can trust you, but you're also selective. She has to earn you. That combination is neurologically addictive. But here's where most men fail. They think this means playing hard to get or being emotionally unavailable. Does that sound like safety? No. The safety paradox requires you to be emotionally present and reliable while maintaining standards and a life purpose that doesn't revolve around her. But safety and uncertainty aren't enough if you don't understand this next principle. Because emotional triggers without this element fade fast. Before we go deeper, just do one thing for me. Hit the like button. If this is already hitting something real, what's coming next will hit even harder. Subscribe if you're ready to understand the actual science of attraction instead of the fairy tale version. Because what's coming, this is where boys separate from men. Let's keep going. Purpose magnetism is when she sees that you're genuinely driven by something bigger than her. Not your job, not money, not status for its own sake, but a mission, a calling. Something you're building that matters deeply to you. She can feel that your life has direction, momentum, meaning, and she wants to be part of it. Picture this. She asks you what you're doing this weekend. You tell her you're working on your business, or training for something, or building a skill. Not in a bragging way, in a matter-of-fact way. This is what I do. This is who I am. At first, maybe she's a little disappointed you're not immediately available. But soon, she realizes something. You have a plot. You're the main character in your own story. Over time, she starts wondering how she fits into that story. This is dangerous because it makes her see you as the main character in your own story, not a supporting character in hers. Most men position themselves as accessories to a woman's life. What do you want to do? Where do you want to eat? I'm free whenever you are. Purpose. Magnetism flips this. You have a plot. She can join it or not. Psychologist Viktor Frankl wrote that humans are fundamentally driven by the search for meaning. Women are attracted to men who embody meaning because it signals genetic fitness in the deepest way. This man can navigate life, can create value, can build something that survives him. When she sees you pursuing purpose, she experiences what researchers call reflected glory. Being close to you elevates her own sense of meaning. The consequence is profound. She starts supporting your mission because it makes her feel part of something bigger. But here's where most men fail. They fake purpose. They pretend to be busy. They manufacture missions that are really just hobbies or distractions. She can sense the difference between a man grinding towards something real and a man performing productivity for her benefit. Real purpose. Magnetism is effortless because you'd be doing it even if she never existed. And that's why the next trigger is so crucial. Because purpose without this element makes you admirable, but not addictive. The emotional roller coaster isn't about drama or toxicity. It's about emotional range. You make her feel things she doesn't feel with other men. You make her laugh harder. You challenge her thinking in ways that frustrate her, then make her respect you more. You create experiences that are exciting, maybe slightly uncomfortable, then deeply connecting. She goes through more emotional states with you in one evening than she does with other guys in a month. Imagine one night with you. You start with playful teasing that makes her laugh. Then you take her somewhere she's never been. Then you have a conversation that challenges her worldview. Then you create a moment of physical tension. Then you shift to something meaningful. By the end, she's experienced surprise, frustration, attraction, depth, connection, all in a few hours. This is dangerous because it creates what's called emotional arousal transfer. When she experiences intense emotions in your presence, even emotions that aren't directly about attraction, her brain starts associating you with aliveness, with feeling. Most men are emotionally flat, predictable, safe in the boring sense. You become the source of her feeling fully alive. There's a famous psychology study where people crossed a scary suspension bridge. Those who met an attractive person mid-bridge reported more attraction than those who met the same person on solid ground. Why? Because the adrenaline and fear got misattributed to attraction. The emotional roller coaster works the same way. When she feels intense emotions around you, her brain codes you as significant, important, unmissable. The consequence: other men start feeling boring by comparison. But here's where most men fail. They create negative emotions. They pick fights. They create drama. That's not an emotional roller coaster. That's chaos. Real emotional range means taking her from laughter to depth, from playfulness to meaning, from comfort to growth. Positive spectrum, not trauma bonding. But even emotional intensity isn't enough without this next trigger, because feelings without this foundation evaporate. Selective attention is the art of making your attention feel like a prize, not because you're withholding or playing games, but because you genuinely have standards for where your energy goes. When you give her your focus, it's complete. No phone, no distractions, total presence. But you don't give it freely or constantly. She has to be worth it. And when she is, When she earns those moments, they become the highlight of her week. Picture this power dynamic. You're at dinner with her. Your phone buzzes multiple times. You don't even look at it. You're completely present, listening, engaged. She feels like the only person in the world. But the next day, you're focused on your work. She texts you. You respond hours later. Not to be rude. You were genuinely busy. She starts to realize something. Your attention isn't automatic. It's earned. And when she has it, it's everything. This is dangerous because it reverses the typical dynamic. Most men give women unlimited attention hoping to win them over. That attention becomes worthless through abundance. Selective attention makes your focus valuable because it's scarce, earned, and completely present when given. She starts measuring her self-worth by whether she can capture your attention. Behavioral economists call this the scarcity principle applied to emotional resources. When something is rare, humans assign it higher value. When your attention is always available, it has no market value. But when she has to be her best self, be interesting, be engaging to capture your focus, and when she succeeds, she gets the full force of your presence that becomes intoxicating. But here's where most men fail. They confuse selective attention with being cold or distant or playing hard to get. Is that presence or is that absence? Selective attention means when you're with her, you're fully with her. When you're not, you're fully in your own world. No games, no manipulation, just genuine resource allocation. And that brings us to the final trigger. The one I warned you about. The deepest truth about female bonding that exposes everything. Brother, listen carefully. Here's the truth that destroys the entire game. Women don't get addicted to men who need them. They get addicted to men who choose them. And you can't choose her if you need her. That's the trap. That's the fundamental error almost every man makes. The self-sufficiency trap is when you realize that all these triggers, dopamine spikes, vulnerability, safety paradox, purpose, emotional range, selective attention, only work if you're genuinely complete without her. Not pretending to be complete. Not acting self-sufficient while dying for her validation. Actually being a whole human who would thrive with or without her presence. Think about what we've covered. Every single trigger requires you to have something she doesn't control. Your own life for dopamine spikes. Your own depth for vulnerability contrast. Your own value for the safety paradox. Your own mission for purpose magnetism. Your own emotional world for the roller coaster. Your own standards for selective attention. Notice the pattern? Your own. Your own. Your own. This is the most dangerous realization because it exposes the real game. She can't get addicted to you if you're already addicted to her. She can't bond to you if you're desperately bonded to the idea of her bonding to you. Your neediness, your attachment to outcome, your secret hope that these triggers will make her want you. It poisons everything. She can smell it, and it repels her on a biological level. Carl Jung said the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But here's what he didn't say explicitly. You can't have a chemical reaction if one substance is desperately trying to be consumed by the other. Women bond to men who have their own gravity, their own center, their own completeness, not men trying to fill a void with female validation. Here's where most men fail, and this is the ultimate failure. They learn these triggers. They apply them mechanically. They try to make her get addicted, but addiction isn't manufactured. It's the natural byproduct of her encountering a rare man, a complete man, a man who doesn't need her to feel whole. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You cannot control whether she bonds to you. You cannot control her brain chemistry, her past, her attachment style, her readiness. The self-sufficiency trap is realizing that trying to control her bonding is the exact thing that prevents it. Here's what most men never understand. These 7 triggers work not because they're manipulation tactics, but because they're the natural behaviors of a self-sufficient man. A man who creates dopamine spikes isn't trying to. He just has a rich life that creates natural highs and lows. A man with vulnerability contrast isn't performing. He's genuinely strong, with the security to be real. A man with purpose magnetism isn't faking it. He's actually building something. But here's where most men fail the final test. They get her addicted. She bonds. She's all in. And then he realizes the addiction was mutual. He was just as addicted to getting her addicted. He wasn't a self-sufficient man allowing a woman into his complete life. He was an incomplete man using sophisticated tactics to fill a void. And when that happens, the whole thing collapses. Because she didn't fall for a real man. She fell for a performance. And performances always end. Listen carefully. This isn't about manipulating women. This isn't about tricks or games or making someone bond to you against their will. This is about understanding a harsh truth. Female bonding is a response to genuine male quality, not a prize you extract through strategy. Here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop trying to make her addicted, you become addictive. When you genuinely build a complete life, a life with purpose, emotional depth, selective standards, real self-sufficiency, you naturally exhibit all 7 triggers. Not because you're trying to, because you are that man. So stop asking, how do I make her bond to me? And start asking, how do I become so complete that her bonding is simply her recognizing quality? Build that mission. Develop that emotional range. Cultivate that presence. Master that self-sufficiency. Your purpose. Your depth. Your standards. Not to get her. For you. When you do this, when you truly do this, women don't just bond to you. They encounter something rare. A man who doesn't need them but chooses them. And that choice, that freedom, that completeness, that's what creates obsessive, healthy, deep bonding. Not addiction born from manipulation. Connection born from recognizing someone extraordinary. You become extraordinary by doing the work nobody wants to do. Drop a comment. What's the one area of self-sufficiency you're going to develop this week? Let's build together, brothers. A Tejik. You think, I'll just adjust a little, make myself more compatible. But soon, you're unrecognizable. You've erased your edges, smoothed out your personality, became vanilla, safe, forgettable. This is the ultimate attraction killer because you can't fake authenticity. Even if she doesn't consciously notice the performance, her subconscious reads the inauthenticity. She senses the desperation underneath, and nothing repels sexual obsession faster than a man who doesn't know who he is. Here's the painful truth, brother. The man women become sexually obsessed with is the man who would be completely fine without them. Not cold, not avoidant, but complete. Nietzsche called it amor fati, love of one's fate. You have a mission, a purpose, a life that's compelling with or without her in it, and that's what makes you magnetic. Sexual obsession isn't created by doing things to a woman. It's created by being a man she can't help but orbit. A man with gravity, with substance, with a life so rich that access to it feels like a privilege, not a given. The Stoics taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When you abandon yourself for her approval, you're literally giving away the one thing you actually control: your frame, your center, your mission. And women don't fall for men with no center. They fall for men who pull them into an already established orbit. But here's where most men fail. And this is the self-deception part. They think they're being flexible or compromising. But there's a difference between healthy compromise in a relationship and preemptive self-erasure to attract someone. One comes from abundance, the other from scarcity. One says, "I'm choosing to bend." The other says, "I'll become whatever you want because I'm terrified you'll leave." And that scarcity mindset, that's what we need to kill right now. Listen carefully. This isn't about hating women or playing games. It's about understanding psychology, about becoming the kind of man who naturally creates obsession because he's obsessed with his own growth, his own mission, his own standards. Here's the truth that will set you free. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. When you stop performing, you start connecting. When you stop abandoning yourself, you become unavoidable. The right woman? She doesn't want your servitude. She wants your strength. She wants a man she has to level up to keep. A man whose attention feels earned, not given. A man who chooses her and himself. So start there. Reclaim your mission. Rebuild your standards. Become the man you'd respect. Drop a comment. Which pattern hit you hardest? Let's talk about it. Now go do the work.